The Sustainability of Planet Earth, Episode 1, Part 2. We are now returning to Forester Guy Dunkel, and now we will learn about the history of this tract and land by its pit and mound topography. We will also observe Guy in the proper techniques of the felling of a tree. So grab your hard hats.
Right. Well, just take a second and look at the forest floor behind us, back by the hemlock tree there with the needles on. So what you're seeing here is called pit and mound topography, right? And forest ecologists have figured out that if you're in an area that has been forest for thousands of years, over time trees tip over and that leaves behind little depressions in the forest floor, right? So when we look behind us and see depressions and mounds where tree stumps and root balls rotted away and left a pile of dirt, we see that pit and mound topography. That tells us we're in an area that has been forest for a long time, right? We're going to walk over to see some little gaps and puddles and things like that. Look out ahead of us and notice how flat the forest floor is, right? So that tells us a different history here. Originally this would have been forest. Those trees were cleared off, and then how did the land become flat? Plowing, right? So this, not only do we know this was a field, but we know that it was a crop field, right? If this was a pasture where animals were working, we would still see some undulation of the forest floor, right? But we know that this must have been plowed. Somebody must have physically taken tools and straightened out and flattened the forest floor, right? This is just a great example of what happens when we stop farming it, pasturing it, burning it, cutting it. When we stop doing the things that people and our tools and animals do, nature takes over. You come back, 80 years later, and we have a forest of trees that are 110 feet tall and are just massive, right? It is a good example of Mother Nature regaining control over what we thought we had taken control of. So the species that we see also tell us something about the history of the forest. We know that the tulip poplar must have grown up in a high light environment. Well, what's higher light than being a cornfield, right? Somebody stops farming this, a lot of light, and that's the species that we get back. You go over here into an area that was historically wooded, got the pit and mound topography, and the species that we see are the types of tree species that thrive in a low light environment like hemlock, right? So two things we can look at to help us unwrap the mystery of the history of forests, right? All right.
You're like a different person all of a sudden.
That was fast. Let's walk up here. I'll cut this poplar with the blue thing on it, but I need you uphill from me.
Sorry.
But what's important for you to understand, when we're doing good forestry, we're actually more concerned with the trees being left behind than the ones that we're cutting out, right? The idea is that cutting this tree, the logs that come out of this, are a byproduct of making a really healthy forest. I'm not after this tree. What I'm after is the impact to the others by cutting this. You understand what I'm saying? That's my goal, is to help the other trees, not to get this log.
Sounds like a chainsaw.
Now, if I scream, "Oh crap," no, I'm just kidding. All right, so what I've done here is I've cut this notch out, and essentially I've made a hole for the tree to fall and collapse on, right? Then you can't see it on this side, but I took my saw and bored in from this side. What I'm going to do now is cut out the back of the tree, leaving a strap of wood like that, right? And that wood is going to be the hinge that connects this tree to the stump and holds it in place the whole time during the falling while this gap closes, right? If I make my gap too small of an angle, then the gap closes, that pops the wood, severs the wood on the hinge, and from that point on the tree's in free fall. So I need to make my gap, my notch, large enough that this hole, by the time this hole collapses and severs that hinge wood, the tree's on the ground and there's not much more travel to be done during the free fall process, right? Pushing my hinge, I want it to be about an inch thick. I'm going to cut out the back of the wood, and if everything goes well, it's going to hit maybe a foot or two to the right of that big stump. Right? It's going to hit at a 90-degree angle with the chainsaw. So we're going to cut trees down, but it doesn't mean I don't love them, right? I'm going to enjoy the tree, and we're going to be quiet while it hits the ground. Okay?
That's a moment of silence.
So then the next process is to take that tree, turn it into usable length, right? So based on the species, the quality determines how long I buck that into logs. Then the horses would come, hitch up, and take it out from here. All right, that's Sustainable Forestry 101. 26 right
You got
there.
46 to right there. So
72.
72.
Pretty close.
Said
We
about 75
or
back
80.
there.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us for episode 1 on sustainability of planet Earth. Our next episode, we will be exploring the rising need of solar and clean energy for the sustainability of our planet. On ways you can make a difference in your community, contact us through these social media sites. Planted Forward is the critical initiative building awareness for municipalities and states to develop green infrastructure systems that will create a healthier environment and counter fossil fuel emissions that are definitively creating the devastation of climate change. As individuals, we can all make a difference by embracing clean energy alternatives for the sustainability of our only planet. Message us for more information on how you can bring Planted Forward to your community. By planting just one tree in front of your home, by the street, you can make a critical difference today. Each tree that you plant takes in 48 pounds of toxins. Each gallon of gas gives us 20 pounds. It's easy math. The tract of land filmed was purchased by immigrants Michael and Anastasia Zinchenko, purchased in the early 1900s, and it was a farm. In the early 2000s, the land became protected under the Land Trust through the Foundation for Sustainable Forests. The FLORAROZE is an anagram of the family's names. It is also an exemplary example of the importance of land trusts.